right, so Joe Budden's music. Anytime you critique Joe Budden's music, people are always going to just assume that you didn't hear his music. Like the only song you know is Pump It Up. They just assume you haven't listened to his music. Well, that's not me. So this is my first time you on this channel. You see my other videos.
I was reading one of these stupid little fucking bloggity blog kids.
That's me.
While I was in some YouTube rabbit hole, I saw a 20-year-old kid doing a deep dive on what he thought my greatest to worst albums were.
What did he come up with?
A 20-year-old? Oh, I'd like to hear that.
He was 20. Well, what he was debating with himself was, is Joe Budden the top 10 MC? And what he was saying was, top 10 media guy, top 10 podcaster, or great podcast, all of that shit I'm rolling with. He has changed the landscape.
All-time great podcaster in hip-hop, yes. All-time great media figure in hip-hop, yes.
But when it comes to rap, he doesn't have the catalog for me to put him there.
Joe Budden is not a guy who has a really great discography.
And I respect that. I just don't respect it from a 20-year-old when he follows it with ranking my albums, which led me to, why am I watching this fucking 20-year-old rank my album? I'll rank my shit.
What was his ranking?
Yeah, I'd like to hear his
At least one was like top 3 or something.
Did he do everything? Or
no, he said
albums.
His point was, and he was correct, mind you. He said a lot of Joe's music, poorly mixed. You can't even listen to it today.
The mixing is just pretty poor, you know. It's not really something you can play nowadays.
Yes, that's right.
Fair.
He said that's what takes away from. So I get that. So
about Joe Budden's music, this is my first time I've critiqued Joe Budden's music. And I actually made this tweet the other day. I said Joe Budden's music was never that dope. I said for the type of MC that he is, he actually over-exceeded. He did well if you consider all things. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by he over-exceeded? Well, firstly, I'll start with Joe Budden's music was never that dope, okay? He had a very niche type sound with the Mood Music series. He had a very confined time where he was hot on the internet, and then it passed. With the Joe Budden fans, if you say anything about Joe Budden, the first thing they'll say, if you critique Joe Budden in any way, the first thing his mega fans will say, his cult fans will say is, you haven't heard the music, right? Well, I've actually heard the music. So that doesn't work with me. Like, I've heard the music. Like, I'm not just on here chatting. Like, I actually listen to music. So I can say this, right? Let's look at these mixtapes, because this is where they want you to start. When the Joe Budden fanatics, when they say you haven't heard the music, they're talking about this right here. The mixtapes. I mean, he has albums too, but let's just talk about the mixtapes. The Mood Music 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 4. So I'll say this, right? This is the best one out of all of those. Out of all the Mood Musics, Mood Music 4 is the best. Why do I say that? Well, you got some good songs on here like Remember the Titans. What other songs do I like here? Remember the Titans is the one that stands out the most to me. But it's also the best by default because so many of these Mood Music projects are mixed terribly. It's like someone just threw a compressor and an EQ on it and just called it a day, right? Like there was no time put in into the mixing. So these, you can't really listen to these today. People call these classic mixtapes and classic albums, but you can't really listen to it today. You know, there is music that was made in the 1970s and 80s that is mixed and mastered better than this. I get it. It's self-released. Trust me, I understand. And whenever I say this, and I actually said this, and Parks from the Joe Budden podcast, he responded by saying, well, during that time, no one's music was really mixed that well.
his point was, and he was correct, mind you. He said a lot of Joe's music, poorly mixed. You can't even listen to it today. Yes, that's right.
That was a whole era. Like, someone 20 probably wouldn't get that. When I was in high school, nothing was mixed.
That's not true. You know what I mean? And I'll play a song from one of these Mood Musics, and I'll compare it to a mixtape that came out around the same time. All right, so this is Joe Budden freestyle. So he hadn't even started rapping yet, and you can hear like this. Okay, this sounds terrible.
Oh wait a minute. Who call me Elephant Man? Nope, it ain't reggae when it ain't no bomb. You never.
You may be listening on your phone speakers, your desktop speakers. You may think, okay, maybe I just need headphones. No, trust me, I have headphones in. I have Sennheisers in. It sounds terrible. You can play this in your car. It'll still sound terrible. You know, that's not even talking about his rap style, what he's rapping about. We'll save that for later, right? But yo, let's compare this to something around the same time that came out around the same time. Parks says that all the mixtapes around this era were mixed terribly. I don't think that's true, right? So Mood Music 1 came out December 2003. 50 Cent, Surrounded by Hoes. 50 Cent is the future. This is a mixtape from around that era.
Everywhere I'm at, everywhere I go. I stay surrounded by hoes.
And let's skip ahead a little bit just to hear how he sounds rapping over it.
In the club, my nigga, we finna ball out.
Okay, so there is a clear difference. I mean, this Surrounded by Hoes by 50 Cent, this isn't like the pinnacle of mixing and mastering either. But this actually sounds like some effort was put into it. So again, whenever I make this critique, like, yo, the Mood Music, like 1 through 3 pretty much is unlistenable just because it's mixed so poorly. The number one response is always, all the mixtapes around that time were mixed terribly. I just disprove that. And here's another song from around that era off of a mixtape. This is Fabulous, November 2003. So this actually came out a month before Mood Music 1. This song is called Fabuloso. Let's see if it's mixed as terribly as a Joe Budden song. So you can clearly hear that it's not mixed as terribly as the others.
Go by the expressions on them hotties grills. I could tell they wanna holler at somebody.
I don't know. That sounds pretty damn good to me. So let's just stop this. Let's just stop this thing where I critique the mixing and mastering on Mood Music 1 through 3, and then you respond with, well, everything sounded mixed poorly around that time. I just disproved that. I showed you a song off 50 Cent is the Future, which is older than Mood Music 1, that was mixed better. And then I just showed you a song off of Fabulous's More Street Dreams mixtape. It's older than Mood Music 1 again, and is mixed a lot better. Secondly, I'll say that Joe Budden, he has like one style. He has one style. Yeah, when you listen to his, and I keep mentioning Mood Music because this is like the best thing he's done musically, according to his fans. It's all like the same flow and the same delivery. Now, I'll play a couple more songs off some of this stuff. I'll go to Mood Music 2 this time. 19, 20 songs, and it's like the same flow, same cadence, same delivery. Sure, you can say, yo, the bars are so excellent. I don't think the bars are like super excellent. We'll get to this later. But it's like a one-trick pony. It's the same stuff over and over. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, just peep how it's all going to sound extremely the same as I go from song to song. We're just going to play little snippets off of each song, but just catch the flow.
Running out, do it quick. She starts crying. Mood's getting sticky. Your moms I throw against the door, but in the back of your mind, you.
Okay.
Fox Brown should be the only one that can't hear that. Hit you in the spine or the belly. Gun on me. I ain't sticky fingers. I ain't leaving it poppin', my nigga. Let's get it poppin'. Let's get it poppin', my nigga. Let's get it poppin', my nigga. Let's get it poppin'. See, I'm jogging. Other niggas' legs start wobbling when opportunity is start knocking.
You see what I'm saying? Like, he has one delivery for sure. It's one delivery. He has times where he raises his voice. I mean, you listen to Joe Budden, you know. I listen to this shit. I'm not just talking about it, bro. I'm not just chatting shit. I've actually listened to this. And this is what someone said to me today. He doesn't have the best music, but in his prime, he was an excellent rapper. I just disagree. I think he was good, but I wouldn't say excellent. Joe Budden was not notably better than his contemporaries. What do I mean by that? Joe Budden was not notably better than his contemporaries. When did Joe Budden come out? 03, right? That's kind of when he caught fire, right? Who else came out around, let's say, just the early 2000s? Okay, 50 Cent. Is Joe Budden better than 50 Cent from a rapper, holistically? No. DMX, right? DMX was around that time, right? DMX was a little bit before Joe Budden, but they were out at the same time. Is Joe Budden better than DMX? No. Beanie Siegel, again, a little bit before Joe Budden, but they were out at the same time. Was Joe Budden better than Beanie Siegel? No. People talk about Joe Budden, he is so vulnerable. That's another thing people say. People weren't really vulnerable back then. Rappers weren't vulnerable. When you listen to Feel It in the Air by Beanie Siegel, you don't feel like, yo, Joe Budden he does this style way better. You don't feel like that. Who's another rapper that was out around the time Joe Budden? Fabulous, right? Is Joe Budden better than Fabulous? I mean, this may be a debate for some of you all, But for me, Fabulous has more styles. He has more variety. He has more looks he can give us. You know, the Street Dreams, There's No Competition mixtapes, to the hit records like You Make Me Better, Breathe. I mean, he has so much more stylistically. Deliveries, flows, I think it's safe to say Fabulous is better than Joe Budden at rapping. And notice, I'm only naming rappers in the tri-state area. I've only named rappers from like New York, Jersey, Philly. We haven't even gone to the South and to the West for rappers at that time. So even if you just look regionally, I wouldn't say Joe Budden was ever an excellent rapper. He was never like notably better than his contemporaries. I mean, he had a cult fan base online. He helped pioneer that. And there's still a strong fan base to this day. But when you look at Joe Budden's discography, I mean, he did his thing. He went from 2003 all the way. When was his last project? Was it 2016? That's a hell of a run. But I think online people get it mixed up. I don't think he was ever an excellent rapper. Even when he was with Slaughterhouse, I don't think he was the best rapper on there. I don't think his mixtapes that people fawn over are even listenable today. Mood Music 1, 2, 3. I don't even think it's listenable today. And no, it's not because all mixtapes during that time were mixed terribly. No, like we just disproved that. These are just mixed terribly. You can really only listen to one Mood Music, and that's number 4. Maybe 3.5, but really 4 is the one that you can still play to this day. And I know people will say, hey, why didn't you go deep into his albums? Well, the mixtapes are the best stuff, right? I'm going off what Joe Budden fans say. So I think that's just the truth about Joe Budden's music. I think as he becomes a more popular podcaster and goes up in that field, we shouldn't pontificate, great word, as if he was an excellent rapper or he was one of the best of his times. He just wasn't. Joe Budden was not a standout rapper during his time. He did not stand out above DMX, Fabulous, 50 Cent, Beanie Siegel. Like, he wasn't on those guys' level. He had a cult following, a cult fan base. He had a topic, which was, vulnerability that he tapped into, and it worked for a couple years. And he was able to build more longevity off of that. But was Joe Budden an excellent rapper? No. Was he a good lyricist? Yes. Did he have some good projects? Yes. Has anything that he's done been classic that you can still replay today and call it a classic? No. And I'm sorry to the Mood Music fans. There are 4.5 Mood Musics. You can probably pop in 1 or 2 of them today, and it sounds good. So anyways, that's all I got to say for that. Be sure to subscribe if you have not already. This is top5rapwebsite.com. Peace.